Hello, my friends. I'm Nathan Leal. The website is watchmanscry.com. And I want to just come to you right now, tonight, and give a short message with my thoughts. And I hope that I can communicate these thoughts in a manner that will be understood. Because, ladies and gentlemen, I am watching behaviors go on right now here in America, in the body of Christ, in the church, in people who say that they're remnant. And I'm watching this thing. And the reason that I'm concerned is because it seems that the great delusion is working in a way that a lot of people didn't expect. What I mean by that is if we go back to before Trump was president, we didn't really hear that term fake news very often. Folks, remember that? Trump is the one who coined the phrase. He made it popular, and he always complained that that's what was happening to him in his effort to save America and get the world back in proper order. But his behavior was just so bizarre and horrible and unbecoming that when it was reported on the things he either said or did, he used the term fake news. No, I didn't. So he made it so regular in the ears and in the minds of all of us that now everybody uses that term. And what has ended up happening is that now, when any event happens in the world or in America or anywhere, the first tendency is to say that I don't believe it because it's fake news. Now, let me qualify that. Yes, it's very important for us to be wise. It's important for us to make sure that we vet the information that we hear or that we share or spread or circulate. It's important to make sure that we vet it. But I'm noticing that in regards to Ukraine, this is where it's really coming to the forefront. A lot of people who are Christians are dismissing the entire narrative that's going on over there because they're saying it's all fake. It's fake news. There's not a real war. And I've already ran across this. I've already put out several programs about the war in Ukraine, and inevitably within minutes someone will type in, it's not real, it's fake. Or they'll say that you have it wrong, you're picking the wrong side, or how do you know Putin's not saving us? How do you know Putin's not cleaning up the Nazis that are in Ukraine? There's a narrative now that Putin is cleaning up the Nazis. And I want to talk about that right now. Now, folks, please make note of where I'm coming from. I'm not coming from this to say that there's no evil in Ukraine, that it's not corrupt. Yes, it's corrupt. Every country is corrupt. Ukraine is a baby in the world stage. They became independent in 1991, so they're a baby. They're figuring it out. They're working out the details, and they've struggled along. They've limped along, and they don't have it all figured out. Their letterhead is not as smooth as the United States. That's true. So they're figuring things out, and yes, there's going to be corruption, but there's corruption everywhere, folks. Every country has corruption. But corruption in a country does not mean that the citizens who have nothing to do with the corruption should be dismissed. And when they get butchered, we shouldn't care. But that's what's happening right now in Ukraine. I'm seeing it because over and over, I'm posting, I'm sharing, I'm discussing, I'm talking about some of the atrocities that are already taking place in Ukraine, and it doesn't take long. Someone would chime in and say, well, that's fake news. That didn't happen. The Russians aren't doing that. And ladies and gentlemen, when I share my reports, I'm not going to CNN and stopping there, or ABC News or MSNBC. I'm not basing my reports on cable TV, folks. When I come across a story, I vet it and I go to the source. I look in Europe, I look in Ukraine because the war happens to be in Ukraine. I look on other news sources, and there's a lot of other news sources out there. There are many. We also have people on the ground who are filming with their phones and putting it up on TikTok or Twitter. I saw some reports on Twitter and on TikTok from Ukrainians, from soldiers or from people who live there who were posting stories about things going on there. And so I have shared some of those things. And it was amazing that within 3 to 4 days later of me sharing it, then it was on mainstream news. Let me give you an example. When the invasion first started, the Ukrainians were reporting that shelling was coming from Belarus, from the north, the other country, north. And also that Belarusian soldiers were involved. And I posted that within hours of the invasion, but then it took 4 or 5 days for the mainstream news to then admit it, because then the Belarus State Department admitted it. and said, yes, we're going to be doing this. But when the wars first started, the Ukrainians were telling us. People with their phones were telling us. And I shared it. There was also another report that Moldova had been bombed. There were explosions happening there. So I also shared that Moldova is also becoming invaded. So that's 3 countries. This thing is not good. Now it has come out that Moldova is one of the targets of Putin. Now, how could I have been so lucky? It wasn't luck, folks. It was vetting and looking at other sources and then trying to confirm and doing research and digging. And that's what I do here. I take this ministry seriously, ladies and gentlemen. I've been doing this for 14 years, but I've been in the ministry for 40 years. 40, ladies and gentlemen. I've been studying the Bible for 4 decades. And I have been looking at world events and geopolitics and the structure of world events and the developments that are happening in geopolitics to see how they mirror or match or can be found in Bible prophecy. So that's what I do here on the wall. I'm a watchman, ladies and gentlemen, and I know there's other watchmen as well out there. And for some of you who do not understand what a watchman does, if they are called by God, because there's 2 kinds. There are some that are self-appointed in the natural, and then there's some that God calls. And the ones that God calls, he also equips them with gifts, prophetic gifts, to see over the horizon, to see into what hasn't happened yet. And he gifts that with dreams, visions, or being able to understand the scriptures. There are a few out there that are doing this task. And I consider it a privilege to be one of them, to be counted among them. But ladies and gentlemen, I need to make this very clear. When I started this, God made it very clear to me, because he visited me and spoke to me on several occasions when I first started Watchman's Cry. And God let me know that if I get this thing wrong, if I deceive his children, if I placed images in front of his babies, that's how he told me, if I put things in front of their eyes, I was going to answer to him. So I have been very, very cautious about putting out information that's not true. Now, if you've been with me long enough, you know, and you've seen the fruit of those efforts. I know that there are some of you that are coming on board recent and you're not sure who's Nathan. Maybe he needs help. Maybe he doesn't know that he's sharing false information. Folks, if I share information, I've vetted it. But here's where the problem is. Most Christians are lazy. And a lot of you who are on Facebook or share stories or share news accounts or news developments or news events do not vet what you share. When you forward things, you don't vet them to see if they're true. And I know this is accurate because I've witnessed it hundreds of times in the past 14 years. I have witnessed where people will share stories that are years old, or they'll show images that are years old and say that it happened recently. Now, I understand in the matter of Ukraine, there are some of you who are cautious, which is good, cautious, be careful. But in that discipline that some of you have to not believe anything from the media, you're going to miss some of the things that are happening. Because, ladies and gentlemen, not every single thing that the media reports is a lie. When the media was talking about the convoy, many of you were glad. In fact, I heard some complaint from some of you saying the convoy in Canada is not on the news. Shame on the media for not sharing it. Why aren't they sharing it? But then when it did get shared, some people said it's fake news. It's not real. Or some of you were glad, and you said, I'm glad that they're sharing the convoy. Woo, woo, look at the people with the placards and the posters on the overpasses as the trucks go under. Yay, yay, yay for the truckers. And it was on the media and you were happy. But now what we have in Ukraine is, instead of being happy that there are actual news reporters who have helmets on and flak jackets and there's shrapnel exploding around them, and some of them could actually be killed, because guess what, folks? Reporters do get killed during war. It's happened throughout time. So there are some actual mainstream media reporters that are in Ukraine reporting on what's going on, and they're filming it. In addition to them, we have citizen journalists who are filming things. And then we have regular citizens who have camera phones and are filming it. So there's a lot of sources to find out if the war in Ukraine is actually happening. And if some of you still are holding on to the notion that it's all fake, the war is not happening at all, you know what? I don't want to argue with you, but if you're on my Facebook page and you don't believe the war is happening, why do you follow my programs? Why do you listen to what I have to say if it's not true? Are you bored? If it's all fake, why are you listening to me? You should just turn me off, unfriend me, unsubscribe, and go on your merry way and live in peace and security in La La Land because you said the war is all fake. So what's real then, my friend? Now, getting back to Ukraine. Putin is doing a campaign of propaganda right now, and some of you folks who are my friends are falling for it. And that propaganda campaign has to do with Nazis. According to Putin, the Nazis are in Ukraine killing everybody. Now, if some of you want to argue and say, well, I have these pictures of these Nazis with Ukrainian flags. That's true. There is a Nazi group that was part of the resistance, the Maidan Revolution, the Orange Revolution, that ended up fighting in the breakaway regions in Donbass, and they're called Azov, A-Z-O-V. Those groups of separatists did take part in the civil war that happened in 2014. And we have pictures of them. So a lot of pictures of them were taken, holding the Nazi flag and the Ukrainian flag. But that thing is 8 years old, folks. Those pictures are 8 years old. And I see Alex Jones posting them, saying the Nazis are in Ukraine. And I see the same pictures over and over on Facebook saying, look, there's Nazis in Ukraine. But that was from 8 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. And that was part of the group who were involved in the uprising. Well, Nathan, doesn't that prove that Ukraine has Nazis? And so isn't Putin right? Well, let's consider that. Let's put that on the table, ladies and gentlemen. Ukraine has Nazis, a small group of Nazis, which, by the way, is about 5,000 to 8,000 people, and they're in the Donbass region. Most of them are. 5,000 to 8,000 of the Azov separatists. So because of that amount, are you saying that Putin then is justified to go in there with tanks and machine guns and missiles and level all the cities, the major cities of Ukraine, and topple their government and take over because there's a few thousand Nazis in Donbass? Really? What about the United States, folks? Do you know how many Nazi groups are here in the United States? It's between 800 to 900. A few years ago during Trump, it got up to 1,200, but now it's about 900 groups, ladies and gentlemen. And these groups are then broken apart into subgroups. You have neo-Nazis, white supremacists, you have Sons of Odin, you have skinheads, there's KKK, Ku Klux Klan. There are several groups, and they total into the hundreds of thousands, if not a few million, here in the United States, ladies and gentlemen.
The image these racist groups are hoping to convey is, look, join us. This is normal. We want a white America, and that idea shouldn't be shunned, but embraced by this country. According to several of the organizations that track hate groups, the number of people joining these hate groups is up, as are hate-related incidents. They saw a spike, especially during the election cycle of 2016. These groups are on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on Reddit, they have their own websites. They are trying to get their message out any way they can, and it is working. In particular, they're looking to recruit young people, college students. There are flyers, for example, going up on campuses and other public spaces, trying to show them that this is the kind of America that they really do want to live in. In other words, the hoods are off and the button-downs are in.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands. So if Ukraine having a few skinheads, Azov, justifies Putin for leveling Ukraine, then that also means that if there's a skinhead living in your town, in your city, in your state, that means that Putin can come into your town with his tanks and start blowing up all the buildings. He can level where you work. He can level the school where your daughter goes, where your kids go to school. He can destroy the hospitals because that skinhead's in your town, right? I mean, fair is fair, right, folks? No, come on, Nathan, that's absurd. That's not even fair. You're right, it's not. We have all kinds of misfits in America, just like we have misfits all over the world. But does that mean that you want Putin to come in and destroy your town because of that? Of course not. So for those of you that are siding with Putin and saying that that's a good thing that Ukraine is being leveled because of the Nazis, folks, do your homework. And then compare to America and do your homework. Now, if you want to know the real truth about what Putin is doing for the past few years, actually it goes back 20 years, but even more recently, Putin has been doing a campaign, a very vigorous campaign of propaganda to convince the Russian citizens that Ukraine has been taken over by Nazis, that a genocide is happening, that a Holocaust is happening, that the Ukrainian government is killing their citizens and butchering them. That's what he's telling the Russian citizens on state-run TV. That's there, folks. Putin shut down all the free press, and the people are hearing this. Also, get this, folks. The citizens of Russia are being told that he has to go in there to save the innocent Ukrainians from the evil Nazis. But it doesn't stop there. He also says that Joe Biden is a Nazi. Oh, yeah, that's okay, Nathan. Fine. Joe Biden is a Nazi. Doesn't stop there. Putin is also telling his people that the U.S. Congress is Nazi. It doesn't stop there. He's also saying that NATO and all its members are Nazis. And he's also saying German Chancellor is a Nazi and American citizens are Nazis. So his military campaign that he's doing in Ukraine is to denazify, get rid of the Nazis in Ukraine. But Belarus is helping them do it because Belarus is also telling his citizens. Dictator up there, Lukashenko, Lugi, in Belarus is telling his citizens, because he's a dictator, by the way, he's been there 30 years. He's telling them that Nazis have taken over Ukraine and they have to go clean them out. He's also telling his citizens that before Putin invaded, NATO was putting weapons and missiles along the border of northern Ukraine and was about to fire missiles into Belarus. And also missiles were placed in Ukraine, pointed at Russia, and NATO was going to bomb Russia. And NATO was going to bomb Belarus. And NATO was going to invade and attack Russia and Belarus. That's what they're telling their people. Ladies and gentlemen, Putin's a liar. And he wants his people thinking that what he's doing is a noble, holy, sanctimonious act to save humanity. But that's not what's going on, folks. Putin is showing his true colors. They announced just recently, the Putin regime announced that they're going to start doing public executions in the squares of major cities in Ukraine. That means they're going to take people who were sympathizers for Zelensky or for NATO to create fear in all the Ukrainians so that they will bend and succumb to their oppressors, which is this occupation. That's coming, folks. Also, Russia bombed recently one of their nuclear plants. They shelled it. They bombed the administrative building. And the reason that he did that is because they were believing another lie that Zelensky was going to go into his reactors and take out the plutonium or uranium or whatever's in there and make dirty bombs to attack Russia because he's a Nazi. So they went in and said, oh no, we can't let him do that. We have to shut down the nuclear power plant. And they went out and bombed it. A few of the shells did hit one of the reactors, but it didn't hurt it because they are very, very heavily hardened from that sort of thing. Praise God for that. But Russia's doing that. They're also going into some of their cities, and instead of holding back now, they are doing scorched earth. Scorched earth, ladies and gentlemen. Mariupol in the south, they are just mowing that down. We have some Ukrainian friends, Allison and I, who are from Ukraine and who was born in Mariupol, and he has an aunt who lives there, and he told me that she's scared, and she told him about the bombs that are falling every night, and even on her Facebook page, she took her own pictures of the bombs and the broken buildings, the destruction, the mayhem. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is not difficult to vet if there's a war taking place in Ukraine, because it is. For those of you who are siding with Putin, ladies and gentlemen, Putin is telling his people that World War III has begun, and it's going to involve NATO and the United States. They are hearing this. The news is telling them that World War III is here. The spokesman for Putin, Mr. Sergei Lavrov, have you seen him, folks? He has said it. He said that if they have to use their nukes, they will, because they have a military doctrine. They're not afraid to do it. And he has also said that they need to denazify Ukraine. And they are not going to finish until the end. There will not be a ceasefire until the end. So what is the end? The end is toppling the government there, maybe assassinating Zelensky and placing their puppet in there to restore the old former Soviet republic. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that the dictator of Belarus, Lukashenko, Lugi, shared a map recently. And by the way, folks, look at this picture right here. Check this out. He was talking to his Security Council. And he showed the map, and in this map, it has pictures of Ukraine. But Ukraine's broken up into 4 quadrants, 4 regions. So this is another hint of what they're going to do. They're going to balkanize Ukraine if they have their way. They're going to cut it up into parts, break it open. That's coming, folks. And when you look at the map, look at Moldova. Moldova is occupied. There's another region between Moldova and Ukraine that is occupied, and there's a military campaign going in there to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is war. And World War III is here. For those of you that are sympathizing for Putin and you think that he's some holy guy that is he's fighting the New World Order and he's here to save the day, folks, please just pull back your perspective for a moment. Please. Real people are dying here. And I'm not saying that you have to go take your children to the recruiting office and have them join so they can go fight in Ukraine. I'm not saying that. Because the New World Order is evil and it's going to give rise to the beast. But Putin is also evil. Well, Nathan, who do I pick? Ladies and gentlemen, if you read Bible prophecy, prophecy tells us there's going to be war during the tribulation. When we go to Daniel chapter 11, and it talks about a vile one would rise up, who they didn't give the honor of royalty. He understands dark sentences. You know, the son of perdition, the little horn, that guy. In Daniel 11, folks, go read it. It says that that guy is going to go on 3 that we know of military campaigns against the world. He's going to attack the king of the north, kings of the east, kings of the south. He's going to have constant battles. He will loot some of the places he goes to and then go back to where he came from. At this point in time, I believe that Babylon America is going to give the rise to this guy, the little horn. And that little horn guy is going to go have military campaigns against the world. It's in Daniel 11, folks. So if this is going to take place during Daniel 11, the tribulation, the end of time, then that means that the world's really never totally in agreement to the plans that they want to have. When we go to Revelation, it talks in chapter 9, it talks about the 4 frogs from the river Euphrates are let loose, and those frogs go out to the kings of the earth to get them to fight in Armageddon. So the frogs get them to fight. Demon principalities get them to fight. They're not friends, folks. So yes, we do have the New World Order. Yes, there's a script. Yes, there is an agenda. But there's always going to be infighting. There always is, ladies and gentlemen. Always. And we can expect that as well in these end times that we're in. So for those of you who want to say that it's all fake and Putin and NATO did a handshake behind the scenes, maybe they did, folks. Perhaps they did. Perhaps the post-war has a different map than that exists right now in Europe or even in the United States. Perhaps. But also we must also consider this. Perhaps not. Perhaps it's just the end of days. Perhaps in the tribulation period, during the days of Revelation, the days of Elijah, the days of the end, maybe they're going to have a lot of fighting, and maybe they're going to have a world war, and that's exactly what we see, because the red horse is the red horse of war, ladies and gentlemen, meaning they're fighting each other, meaning there's bad guys. Jesus said there would be wars and rumors of war. There would be kingdom against kingdom, ethnos against ethnos. So for those of you that are saying it's all fake, the Ukrainians are a bunch of liars, I'm not going to have mercy for them, or I don't really feel that I need to. I just need to set you straight. For those of you that are doing that, just hold your peace, please. Because when some of you come into someone having a dialogue of concern about loved ones in Ukraine or in Europe because they have family in Europe, my wife's from Germany. I have family in Europe, ladies and gentlemen. People, real living, breathing people in Europe. I have friends in Europe. Allison has family there. She has friends there. She has a sister and a mother and a son. They're there. She has best friends. She went to school there. There's a concern. So when we share the reports of our concern, we're not just doing it just for clickbait. These are actually concerns that we are on the eve of destruction, ladies and gentlemen. And the thing that is very important that we need to also keep in our hearts and remember in our hearts and in our spirits is that Jesus is watching. Jesus is evaluating every one of us. These are the days of testing. Jesus is testing every one of us to see how we behave, to see how we navigate, to see the amount of faith that we have, to see the amount of love and compassion, to see if we have fruit of the Spirit. Because when he comes back, he's going to look for fruit, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to look for fruit on your branches. And if you spent World War III the whole time just posting that it's fake news. Nah, I don't believe it. They're a bunch of Nazis. If that is the chronicle of your life, if that is the record of your life, and you didn't shed any tears for the mayhem, for those that are hurting, it's not going to go well for you. Every day, Allison and I have looked and seen reports. I've seen the reports on Twitter, on TikTok, on social media from regular folks. Today, another one came out that the Russian soldiers in one of the towns in Ukraine mowed down an elderly man and his son because they wanted to get their dog. And they shot him on the street right in front of the car. And I have the video. I have it, folks. By the way, some of you have said, where are all the dead bodies? I don't believe that there's 4,000 to 5,000 dead Russians. Really? Did you know that the Ministry of Defense in Ukraine is publishing the pictures of the charred bodies and the dead soldiers, the mangled soldiers, the burned soldiers, the ones who won't even have a future? These are little kids, 17, 18, 19 years old. And it's terrible. Those mothers in Russia are not going to have their boys come back. And the other terrible thing is many of the mothers didn't even know their sons were in Ukraine because Putin's a liar and he threw them out there as cannon fodder. So it's a sad situation. And there should be tears in your eyes, ladies and gentlemen, instead of arguing that it's all fake. My heart breaks when I see these stories. And the other thing that saddens me is that I'm watching non-Christians. I'm watching people who don't go to church. I'm watching people who don't read their Bible, and maybe they don't even know who Jesus is, but they're helping the Ukrainians. They're opening their houses to Ukrainian refugees. Berlin, Germany, made an appeal to the citizens and said, if anyone wants to house Ukrainians, show up at this location. And thousands of Germans showed up. And they had little signs saying, in fact, it didn't even say in German, they had pictures. They had a picture of a house and it showed little stick figures of, we can take 2 stick figures, we can take 3, we can take a mom with a child. That's how they, folks, look at this picture right here. Look at this. This is what the world is doing. Non-Christians. Jesus is watching this too. He's making note of this. And while non-Christians are helping their fellow man, the Christians in America who just want to show that they're right and they are letting everybody know about the fake news are missing it. Folks, don't do that. We're at the very beginning of dark days. We're at the very beginning of the days of thunder and lightning and awe and an earth that is shaking and bloodletting. We are in the days of the cities burning and the mountains leveling. We're in those days, folks. So as we go through those days, we have to have the fruit of the Spirit. We have to have love. We have to have compassion for what's going on over there. And that is my appeal to you. Please know, folks, Putin is not on your side. Putin is murdering by the thousands innocent civilians. By the thousands. They are shelling high-rise buildings, residential buildings, apartment buildings. They are firing into schools and hospitals. They are shelling indiscriminately. They're no longer using precision missiles indiscriminately, ladies and gentlemen, from their Grad missile launchers, and they're shooting hundreds of shells into the cities. We saw him do this in Chechnya. We saw Putin do this in Georgia, where he totally destroyed cities. We saw him do this in Syria, and now here he is doing it in Ukraine. So, ladies and gentlemen, have a heart, have mercy, and pray for the people of Ukraine. I'm not telling you that you have to go join the fight. This is a sad day. But the thing that I do want to warn you about, folks, to say that it's fake news when there's a Holocaust happening, we already went down that road in 1937, 38, 39, when the Jews started getting rounded up in Germany. And Hitler, at first, he threw them into the ghettos in Poland. And when the German citizens heard about it, they said, I don't believe it. Our government wouldn't do that. Or they said, well, they deserve it. They're Jews. Or they looked the other way and went to work, ate their sandwich, and thought to themselves, well, it's not me, so what do I care? And that's the same thing, that's the same sentiment that's pathetic that I'm seeing from some of you guys on Facebook and on social media, on YouTube. It's pathetic, folks. I've seen it on Rumble, on Odyssey. It's pathetic. Some of you are sending me the Facebook messages and emailing me. It's fake. They're Nazis. Putin's just clearing it up. That's the same garbage rhetoric that we heard during the Jewish Holocaust. And if that is true, folks, now think about this. If this is true, what I'm saying, if it's true, but your attitude has been, it's fake news or there's Nazis there, then you are guilty. You're guilty of apathy in the Holocaust of the 21st century, in the Holocaust of the end times, in the Holocaust in the end of days, in the Holocaust in the final chapters of the earth, and in the final chapters of your life. Don't be cold like that, folks. Jesus is he's watching. So for those of you that are cynical, jaded, because you want to be wise, and I've seen that, well, we got to be wise, then vet it. But don't just throw away I have posted stories that are true, ladies and gentlemen, because I check them out. I've talked to people in Europe or friends of people who have family in Europe or in Ukraine. I'm going to the source. Allison is talking to Europeans. She's talking to people in Switzerland, in France, in Germany, in Poland. Are you doing that? Instead of just saying it's fake, then vet it. But here's what's going on. Instead of people vetting it, they just say it's fake and then put up some picture from the past that proves their point and then says, see, I'm right, it's all fake. Meanwhile, the butchering is continuing. And you're apathetic. But what's really true, folks? This also shows something else. It shows that Christians in America are lazy. And it shows that some of you on Facebook are lazy. You're lazy. You don't have the discipline to get online and using intellectual scholarship. You don't have that capacity because instead of doing the homework, vetting, going to some of the alternative media sources and seeing if it's true, instead of doing that, you just say it's fake. So why don't you try to prove it? Are you that lazy, my friend? Are you? Well, Nathan, I don't know how to research. Okay, if you don't know how to research, then don't just throw it away and say it's fake if you're not sure. And don't try to school me saying it's fake, Nathan. I know what I'm talking about, folks. I had a talk with Jesus. He let me know, don't put fake stuff out. You make sure. So that's what I'm doing. Now, if what I'm saying right here is bothering some of you and you say, you know what, Nathan, you're a little bit too blunt. A pastor wouldn't do that. A pastor wouldn't talk to us so mean. You know what, folks? An overseer, if he wants to save your soul, will tell you what's true. And he will admonish. Of course, if it's done correctly, biblically. And I'm using the Bible, folks. I'm telling you, we have to have the fruit. And I'm telling you, you do not want to stand before Jesus and him hold a report card in front of you and say, what's this? Does not play well with others. Is that what you want to hear? I hope not. Some of you will, though, sadly. I want you guys to know this. If some of you come into my Facebook page or my YouTube channel or any of that, and you just say those same things and you're not doing your homework, you're not studying, I don't see why we should have fellowship. Because I don't want to have to school and educate every person that's too lazy to check for themselves. I don't want to have to do that. So that's a waste of my time. So if some of you want to do that, I'm going to block you. I'm going to delete you, and I have nothing more to talk about. We are at the end of time and people are dying. All right? I know these words sound blunt, but I'm saying this to help you. Ladies and gentlemen, please make note and read my lips. Putin wants you dead. If you're an American, he wants you dead. If you live in Europe, he wants you dead because you're a Nazi. Putin only cares about Putin and about Russia. That's it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this thing is just getting started. It's going to get ugly, but please do not find yourself on the wrong side of history, on the wrong side of your report, because the Chronicles of the Things of God, his book of remembrance, is writing it all down. There is an angel observing all of us, folks. They have been assigned. There's one around your house. There's one that comes around you in your house, in your bed, when you're at work, when you're in your car, and they're taking notes. They're taking notes when you type stuff on Facebook. They're taking notes at the attitudes that are out there. And the notes that they write down, folks, must be acceptable to God. All right, folks? Well, I'm going to stop with that. Watchmanscry.com. I'm Nathan Leal. I have so many more reports to bring. I've been researching like crazy, folks, and there's a lot of stuff going on. But I can't do it all at once. But, folks, just take these words to heart. All right? And with that, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.